Masugu was particularly on edge that morning as he overheard some of his female colleagues talking in hushed tones about a possible romance brewing within the office. Shizuno, one of his charismatic seniors in the accounting department, approaches him with her usual playful demeanor and nudges him, asking his opinion on the topic. He responded carefully, expressing that he didn't think romance between coworkers was a good idea. Before the conversation could continue, Maria, their no-nonsense junior, made her presence known. She reminded everyone that they should be focusing on their work, clearly irritated by the ongoing chatter. Shizuno got the hint, quickly dismissing the conversation of their other office mates and telling them to return to their desks. The morning didn't improve when Yui stormed into the room, visibly annoyed. She confronted Masugu about a receipt he had submitted, claiming he was supposed to handle it. Masugu counters her accusation, stating that it wasn't part of his responsibilities and that she should deal with her own tasks. Frustrated, Yui snatches the receipt back and huffs at his refusal to help. She insults him one more time before storming off the office. Their colleagues exchange glances, wondering why the two always seem to be at odds despite joining the company at the same time. After the workday ended, the atmosphere shifted entirely. Yui greeted Masugu warmly when he arrived home, apologizing for her earlier behavior. Masugu felt relieved, having half expected their earlier spat to escalate into something worse. Yui admitted that she panicked earlier and didn't know how to act around him while maintaining their charade at work. As Masugu washed his hands, he reflected on the difficulty of keeping their relationship hidden. Their constant coldness toward each other in the office was exhausting, and he wished they could be more open about their feelings. He handed Yui a bottle of beer and cautiously suggested that they reveal their relationship at least to a few close colleagues. Yui, however, was firm in her refusal. She believed the risks were too high for both of their careers and did not want to be the talk of the office. While Masugu agrees, he tries to plead with her for softer treatment during work hours due to it being difficult to receive her harsh remarks during work. But Yui explains that her harshness was a defense mechanism to ensure no one suspected their connection, finding it difficult to be softer in fear that she might let loose and express her affection. She lists all the things they couldn't do in public, from sharing lunches to being overly friendly and even going out on dates. Masugu couldn't help but question whether they were really dating when their interactions were so restricted. But as Yui turns to him with a shy smile, he finds himself falling for her all over again with how adorable she is when she suggests that they could date in public while wearing masks. The following days were a whirlwind of activity for both departments. Masugu, who worked in accounting, found himself swamped with tasks. In the planning department, Yui saw an opportunity to visit him by volunteering to deliver paperwork. She tried to mask her excitement, but her friends noticed her eagerness and teased her about always acting so fierce when visiting the accounting floor. They decided to block her by playing a game to determine who would deliver the documents. Yui spends the rest of the day feeling down, having missed her chance to see Masugu during the busy week. At the end of one particularly tiring day, Masugu received a message from Yui saying she had gone home ahead of him. He replied, asking if he could call her, but there was no response. Smiling on his commute back home, he guesses that she must have fallen asleep early, exhausted from the week's workload. The next morning, Masugu rushes to the elevator with a stack of documents in hand, lamenting the never-ending busy period in his department. He pays half attention to Shizuno as he realizes that he'll probably be working overtime again and won't be able to get much sleep and nourishment. When the elevator doors open for another floor, he is surprised to see Yui entering the elevator. She appeared perfectly composed, her ability to hide her emotions in public a stark contrast to his own struggle, since he felt an immediate sense of relief the moment he saw her. As they stand side by side, Shizuno begins thanking Yui for her help with some tasks. Shizuno even brings Masugu into the conversation, asking for his opinion on Yui's skills. Masugu gave a measured response, carefully complimenting her without revealing too much. Yui's ears turn red, and Masugu notices her embarrassment despite her attempt to act as if she hates him and is above his compliment. As more people entered the elevator, the space grew tighter, forcing Masugu and Yui closer together. In the brief moment when no one was looking, they allowed themselves the small comfort of holding hands, a quiet moment of connection amidst the chaos, which was unfortunately stopped once they reached their floor. After a few days, the busy period finally ends, and Masugu and Yui call each other to plan a rare movie date since they barely had time to do couple-like activities since they began dating. Over the phone, Yui suggests that they start addressing each other by their given names in private, adding a new rule to their growing list of do's and don'ts in their relationship. Although Masugu feels nervous about the change, he agrees to try since they're a couple, and they should be addressing each other comfortably. On the evening of their date, Yui arrives at the meeting place early, having taken the time to freshen up and style her hair in a nearby restroom. Masugu, arriving straight from work, was struck by how pretty she looked. When he compliments her, Yui blushes deeply, struggling to maintain her composure since she isn't used to him complimenting her out in the open. Trying to get her to ease up, Masubu asks her what movie she has decided on, and she tells him it's the horror film they agreed on over the phone yesterday, but accidentally refers to him by his last name. Masubu is a bit put off that Yui is unable to speak his name, so he reminds her of the rule they made yesterday by calling her by their first name. Hearing her name come out of his mouth for the first time causes Yui to get embarrassed and shy all of a sudden, so she tells him to slow down for a second. Meanwhile, Masubu is happy that he got that sort of reaction from Yui, but also scolds himself for being a child about it since they are both adults. During the movie, Masubu finds himself distracted by the realization that they couldn't freely address each other by their first names despite yearning for this intimacy for almost 6 years. However, the film's intense scenes that echo through the movie room soon draw his attention. He realizes that they might have picked a film that was too gory to enjoy. At one particularly frightening moment, he felt Yui grasp his hand tightly. As they exited the theater, Masubu teased Yui about grabbing his hand during a film, making her blush once more. He decides to invite her for dinner, but before they can decide where to eat, Suya, a former co-worker and senior from Yui's university, notices Yui and calls out her name. Masubu notices him and quickly turns his head, hoping Saya wouldn't notice him. Saya greets Yui warmly, and Masubu immediately grows anxious, worried that their secret might be exposed. However, Saya then notices Masubu and greets him, inviting Masubu to join them for dinner since he's willing to pay for both of his juniors. They reluctantly accept since they feel refusing him might seem suspicious, and Yui desperately messages Masubu to keep their relationship a secret. Throughout the meal, Saya compliments Yui on her achievements in the planning department, making her visibly pleased. Masubu couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy, recalling old rumors about Saya and Yui dating back when Saya still worked at their office. He notices how candid and happy Yui is when she speaks to Saya and notes that they always had a special relationship together when they were working in the same office. Masubu struggled to keep his emotions in check as Saya asked how he was doing in the accounting department. He responded politely, keeping the conversation neutral. When Saya mentioned seeing a movie earlier, Masubu and Yui awkwardly denied having watched the same film, their poorly concealed tension making Masubu worry that Saya might suspect that they were going out. However, Masubu decides that it might not be a bad idea to let Saya know that he and Yui are dating since Saya already belongs to a different branch. This might also quell the jealousy he feels inside once he lets his rival know that Yui is already his girlfriend. However, he decides not to reveal his secret when he feels Yui's trembling hands tug on his clothes. He comes up with a clever story of running into Yui, who was wondering what movies she should watch to relax. Able to resist the urge to claim Yui as his, Masubu was able to go through dinner as normal as possible. By the end of dinner, Sia bids them goodnight and gives them a wink before leaving, hinting that he knows something is going on between them. However, Yui seems oblivious, confident that Sia doesn't suspect a thing. Masubu decides to entertain her despite suspecting Sia of already being aware. Finally, alone, Yui gathers the courage to address Masubu by his first name for the first time. Masubu couldn't resist teasing her for taking so long, reminding her that she had called Saya by his first name effortlessly during dinner. This leaves Yui embarrassed, and she desperately tries to explain her reasoning for calling Saya by his first name. However, she didn't notice that Masubu started leaning closer in her panicked state. Just as he is about to kiss her, she stops him, reminding him of their agreement to avoid public displays of affection, especially since they might get caught by another acquaintance. Masubu agrees, but cheekily suggests they continue their business at his house. The next morning, Masubu wakes up to find Yui looking embarrassed yet endearing as she struggles to accept the reality of the night before. So he teases her relentlessly, enjoying her flustered reactions before it is ultimately time for them to get ready for work. As they wait for the train, Masubu notices that Yui is still wearing the same clothes as the day before, worried that people might spread rumors about her sleeping around if they notice. She reassures him that she has a spare outfit in her locker at work, confident that no one in the planning department would suspect a thing if she manages to change in time. To avoid being seen together at the office, they decided to take separate trains. As Masubu boards the first train, he spots Maria among the passengers and realizes she lives nearby, grateful she did not notice Yui with him. He glances back at Yui one last time before the train doors close, grateful that their relationship, though challenging, continues to grow stronger with each passing day. Another morning begins, and Masubu and Yui must once again hide their relationship from their colleagues. On their way to work, they accidentally bump into each other, putting them in a difficult situation. They can't decide whether to acknowledge each other or pretend they didn't see the other. Either way, it risks becoming an awkward moment if their office mates find out. They settle for a curt good morning before continuing on their way to the office. Yui cautiously puts on her usual fierce demeanor and hurls insults at Masubu, who responds with equal harshness to maintain their act. After a busy day at work, they decide to unwind at a bar. Masubu notices Yui stifling a yawn, clearly more exhausted than usual. She explains that her work is almost done, expressing her excitement about the launch of a new snack product she's spearheading, a significant milestone for her since it will be her first snack product. Despite her cheerful confidence, Yui secretly struggles with finalizing the product. The biggest hurdle is deciding on the perfect topping. A colleague from the planning department tells her that the accounting team has someone with an exceptional eye and taste for snacks. In the accounting department, Masugu helps Shizuno move boxes when Yui arrives. He assumes she's there to see him, but feels disappointed when she approaches Maria instead. Yumi explained that she was directed to Maria for advice. Maria samples 2 versions of the product and takes a bite of each one. She confidently recommends the one with coconut toppings and also shares insights on the best markets to release the product. Yui, eager to absorb the advice, diligently takes notes, impressed by Maria's expertise when it comes to food. Surprised that someone from accounting has such talent, Yui compliments Maria and mentions her popularity among snack reviewers online. This flusters Maria, who sheepishly asks Yui to keep her secret. She confesses that her bubbly, snack-loving online persona contrasts sharply with her professional image at work, and she doesn't want people in the office to treat her differently due to the girly persona she is online. Amused by Maria's unexpected shyness and dedication to her profession, Yui reassures her, promising to keep the secret. Her kind words surprised Maria, who had always seen Yui as fierce and intimidating due to her sharp tongue. Whenever she saw Masugu in the department, Maria begins to wonder if Yui might actually be kind to others and only harsh towards Masugu. Maria then tells Yui that she understands why Yui is rude to Masugu, citing his impossible personality. She recalls how Masugu once scolded her and Shizuno for using inconsistent fonts and spacing, ignoring the fact that Shizuno is their superior. Yui agrees, but her face betrays her. A smile blooms as a memory sparks fond thoughts of Masugu's nitpicky nature during their private time together. When Maria lists more of Masugu's annoying habits, we can't help but think of them as endearing quirks she loves about him. Surprisingly, Maria doesn't catch on and assumes Yui simply hates Masugu because she's been agreeing with her the whole time despite the dreamy smile on her face. Relieved that her secret wasn't revealed, Yui begins to worry that everyone finds Masugu annoying in his department. However, just as she starts to feel bad, Maria starts complimenting Masugu, pointing out how he's always the first to offer a hand when someone needs assistance. In a small voice, Yui admits she already knows that, recalling the time Masugu helped her when she dropped a stack of papers in the hallway, an event that sparked her feelings for him. As Maria continues munching on snacks, she muses about how much she and Shizuno rely on Masugu. She mentions that his willingness to help often makes him easy to take advantage of. Yui's facade begins to crack as she fidgets and grips her pencil, complaining about how kind Masugu is. She starts rambling about his great qualities, prompting Maria to cut her off by putting her hand in front of Yui. Maria clarifies that she isn't romantically interested in Masugu and isn't sure how to continue the conversation, since it seems Yui is trying to convince Maria that Masugu is good for her. Yui freezes, worried Maria might have caught on to her feelings for Masugu. However, Maria seems to assume they simply have a competitive and complex relationship, noting how they join the office at the same time. Later that evening, Yui spends time with Masugu at his place. Both of them are cleaning up after dinner when she notices that his shoulders have been bothering him. She offers to massage his shoulders and leads them to his room, where she immediately gets to work removing the knots on his muscles. Masugu enjoys the massage and takes the opportunity to ask Yui why she needed Maria's help earlier. Yui vaguely explains that it was about the new product, but avoids mentioning Maria's secret snack review talents and her online persona. She adds that they had a brief chat about Maria's opinion of him, but also refuses to share what she learned about what his department thinks of him. Suspicious of Yui's sudden thoughtfulness, Masugu asks why she's being so considerate when she offers him a massage. Yui explains she noticed him moving equipment in the office earlier and wanted to reward his hard work since it might have caused his shoulders to ache. She then shyly admits it's hard to resist touching him at work, making Masugu's face turn red. She suddenly realizes what she's implying and gets embarrassed, her face turning an equal shade. Yui quickly tries to cover it up by suggesting that he give her a massage next, once she's done giving him his massage. A few days later, Yui walks into the planning department in a good mood, carrying a bag of improved snack samples based on Maria's suggestions. She distributes them to her team, asking for their feedback later. When she hands a snack to Kizuki, she mimics he's struggling with his computer and helps him with a smile. Kizuki thanked her before returning to his work. Meanwhile, Masugu is in a less optimistic mood as he faces challenges in the accounting department as his accounts are rejected by the deputy director. Feeling dejected, he returns to his seat, where Shizuno and Maria try to console him, urging him not to take the criticism to heart. Frustrated, Masugu steps out to clear his head and grabs a coffee from the vending machine. He reflects on the situation, convinced the deputy director is simply out to bully him for doing a good job, when he only added 2 lines to the whole report. 2 of Masugu's friends find him in a distressed state, and he tries his best to mask how upset he is, though he's aware the expression on his face and body language betray him. Unfortunately, Yui also notices him. His friends tease him, saying he's about to get a scolding. Just as he assumes Yui won't approach him, she surprises him by doing the exact opposite. With a bright smile, she walks over to the group and hands out samples of her product, asking each of them to give their opinion on the snack so she can further improve it. As the group marvels at the snack's layers of flavor and the generous amount of chocolate, Masugu is taken aback when Yui approaches him directly to offer a sample. Hesitantly, he takes it from her hand and eats it, commenting that it's just fine. His lukewarm review irritates Yui, and she demands a more detailed critique. She tells him she's willing to accept even criticism since it'll help her improve. Masugu is impressed by her openness to feedback, something he struggles to face since he takes it as an insult. Following her instructions, he points out that the chocolate topping is a bit too much, making the snack slightly messy to eat, motioning the chocolate stain on his thumb. While his friends dismiss the issue as minor, Yui acknowledges that Masugu has a valid point. She admits that most people wouldn't want a snack that's inconvenient to eat. Thanking them for the feedback, she heads back to her department to implement the changes. Inspired by her determination, Masugu decides to return to his desk and redo his report, wishing to do his best since Yui deals with harsh feedback on a daily basis without complaint. After a long day, Shizuno invites Maria and Masugu out for drinks as a reward for their hard work. Masugu considers joining, especially since Yui often goes out with her department for drinks, and he's curious about the experience. Unexpectedly, their group runs into some members of the planning department, including Yui, at the same restaurant. They all end up in the same space, though seated at separate tables. Shizuno playfully nudges Masugu and Yui to interact, hoping a little liquid courage might ease the tension between them. Despite this, Masugu and Yui keep their distance, each staying with their respective groups. Masugu gets caught up in a conversation with Yui's friends and Kizuki, who is notably drinking juice instead of alcohol. When Kizuki excuses himself, the girls apologize for his reserved personality, explaining that he's new to their department. They share that Yui is the one who convinced Kizuki to join their outings. They praise her for taking good care of him and everyone else in the department, attributing it to her bright and welcoming personality. As Masugu listens to Yui's friends speak highly of her, he feels a swell of pride, knowing he's the one she's dating. Glancing over at her table, he's shocked to see it filled with empty beer glasses, a sure sign that Yui has clearly been drinking a lot. Suddenly, she gets up and heads toward the washroom, crouching down by the sink. Worried she might have overdone it, Masugu rushes to her side. He offers to help her back to the table so she can rest, but Yui stubbornly refuses, not wanting to cause concern among her office mates. Finding her defiance adorable, Masugu lightly teases her while rubbing her back to comfort her. Yui frets about the possibility of being caught, but Masugu reassures her that it's normal for colleagues to help each other in this situation. Realizing she may have overdrunk because of his presence, he apologizes. However, Yui, influenced by the alcohol, gets mad at him before relishing the cooling sensation of his hand on hers. Eventually, she declares she'll stay at his place for the night and drifts off to sleep, cold to the fact they are still in public. Just then, Kizuki exits the men's washroom, catching Masugu red-handed with Yui. Kizuki awkwardly explained that he'd been waiting for an opening to leave but didn't want to interrupt until Yui fell asleep. Kizuki awkwardly asks if Masugu and Yui are dating. Feeling there's no point in denying it, Masugu confirms their relationship. The next day, Masugu tells Yui that Kizuki knows their secret, causing her to panic. She eerily suggests locking Kizuki in the storage room and taking him out there to ensure he doesn't tell anyone, but Masugu calms her down, assuring her she's overthinking the situation. He tries to convince her that Kizuki doesn't seem like the type to spread rumors. While Yui reluctantly agrees, she still worries about the small chance he might tell someone, potentially damaging their reputations and careers, especially Masugu's, given how hard he's worked at the company. Moved by her concern for him, Masugu ruffles her hair and reassures her that as long as they act as they normally do in the office, everything will be fine. In the accounting department, Masugu notices that everything seems normal. To his relief, his report has even been approved. Spotting Kizuki by the vending machines, he approaches him casually and requests again that he keep their secret. Kizuki wonders why they're hiding their relationship when the office doesn't prohibit workplace romances. Masugu explains that they want to maintain a professional image, especially since so many people depend on Yui. Hearing the sincerity in Masugu's voice, Kizuki promises not to tell anyone, adding that he wants to protect Yui too. He remarks that seeing a different side of her was surprising, and Masugu responds by saying he finds her most charming that way. As Masugu walks away, he starts thinking about the future. The idea of marrying Yui crosses his mind and he smiles, hoping he can stay by her side and witness her brilliance every day. It's another busy day for the planning department at the office. While Yui's team has managed to develop an impressive snack to sell, they still have other critical tasks to handle, such as designing the packaging. Yui passionately advocates for a trendy, eye-catching design to grab customers' attention. However, some of the bosses, including Kizuki, prefer a simpler, more traditional approach. Just as Yui is about to argue her case, she remembers that Kizuki knows about her secret relationship with Masugu. Deciding it's better to stay on Kizuki's good side, she bites her tongue and agrees to take his feedback into account, reconsidering the simple design for now. After work, Yui heads home and prepares dinner for Masugu. When he finally arrives, she's overjoyed to see he's brought her a box of donuts from a shop she's been eager to try. She sits him down in her cozy living area and goes to the kitchen to plate the donuts and brew some coffee, humming a cheerful tune as she works. From his seat, Masugu glances around her apartment and notices that her collection of Mr. Rabbit's toys has grown since his last visit. He fondly recalls how much Yui loves this particular character and reflects that her apartment, filled with things she adores, feels so lively compared to his own plain and minimalist space. Yui returns with the donuts and coffee, her cheerful demeanor shifting to a serious one as she deliberates over which donut to try first. Watching her furrowed brow, Masugu is reminded of her critical nature at work. When she finally settles on a maple-flavored donut, her mood shifts again, and she reverts to the bubbly and charming Yui he loves seeing during their personal time. Sitting down beside him, Yui takes a bite of her donut. Her eyes light up as the sweet maple flavor envelops her senses, and she lets out a delighted sigh. Masugu watches her expression, captivated by how vividly her emotions show over something as simple as a dessert. He wonders aloud if she's always loved snacks this much. Yui pauses thoughtful before admitting she's always enjoyed snacking but grew to love sampling different brands and treats after joining the company. Working in the planning department, surrounded by food products and snack-loving colleagues, has deepened her appreciation for trying new things. She then turns the question back to Masugu, motioning toward the untouched box of donuts. Surprised, he realizes he doesn't particularly enjoy snacks. He bought them because he knew Yui would enjoy them. Over time, he's learned her tastes and delights in seeing her happy. As he takes a bite of a chocolate donut, he's surprised at how delicious it is, his face lighting up with a mix of wonder and delight. Yui notices his rare expression and leans in to kiss him, grinning as she tells him he looks adorable and that she can't help herself. Suddenly feeling shy over her bold move, Yui quickly gets up from her seat and offers to make Masugu more coffee. Masugu, still stunned by the unexpected kiss, feels his cheeks warm as he processes what just happened. He can't help but smile, realizing that every new side of Yui he discovers makes him fall even deeper in love with her. As they finish the donuts, Yui sighs and begins to vent. She admits that she feels nervous whenever she has to interact with Kizuki, especially during team meetings. Masugu listens attentively, offering her a reassuring smile. He reminds her to take things easy and not overthink them, pointing out that Kizuki had already promised to keep their secret. To further comfort her, he gently pats her head and fondly remembers how Kizuki had even hinted at their potential to get married someday, making him blush. The next day, however, Yui finds herself just as nervous during another team meeting. Sitting across from Kizuki, her anxiety grows as she recalls how Masugu seemed to be holding something back when he talked about their conversation. Instead of focusing on the meeting, Yui begins throwing suspicious glances at Kizuki, her thoughts spiraling into wild assumptions about how much he knows. Her internal monologue is interrupted when one of her teammates excitedly mentions that Yui has been raving about Angel Donuts lately, commenting on how adorable the packaging is. Yui freezes for a moment, realizing that her absent-mindedness has been noticed. Hoping to save face, she quickly agrees and explains that a friend brought her some donuts recently. As soon as the words leave her mouth, panic sets in. She realizes that Kizuki might connect the dots and figure out the friend is actually Masugu. In a hurried attempt to cover her tracks, Yui adds that the friend is more of an acquaintance and awkwardly mentions that it's a female, her darting eyes betraying her nervousness. Kizuki notices Yui's odd behavior, but doesn't really know who the person is in Yui's story. However, her jumpiness turns to a different level when their team suggests asking the accounting department for funds to buy donuts so they can try it for themselves. Kizuki, initially confused by Yui's odd behavior, begins to piece things together. It dawns on him that the friend she's referring to is indeed Masugu, and her frantic attempts to obfuscate the truth are only making it more obvious. He suppresses a sigh, realizing that keeping Yui and Masugu's relationship a secret might be more challenging than he anticipated. To make matters worse, it also seems that Yui doesn't trust him to keep the secret. As Yui and Kizuki are lost in their own thoughts, two of their teammates are suddenly called away to a meeting with the section chief. Before leaving, they dump 2 tall stacks of paperwork in front of Yui and Kizuki, asking them to file it in their absence. The room is soon filled with awkward silence as Yui and Kizuki work side by side. Yui, desperate to ease the growing tension, attempts to make small talk, but her voice trails off when Kizuki offers only a polite and curt response. Feeling tired, Kizuki lowers his voice and asks Yui if she finds him unreliable, his tone tinged with hesitation. Yui realizes her behavior might have made him think she distrusts him. Determined to clear things up, she puts down her papers and slaps her cheeks lightly, a habit she uses to hype herself up. The action catches Kizuki's attention, and she seizes the moment to apologize. She explains that her nerves come from the novelty of being in a secret relationship, since it is something very new to her, not from any doubts about him. Her face reddens, though, revealing a mix of giddiness and embarrassment instead of the seriousness the situation calls for. Kizuki notices and seems to relax, teasing her that her face doesn't seem sorry at all. The mood turns lighter and Yui apologizes for acting so unserious as his senior officer. Kizuki, composed but a little amused, warns her that if she keeps wearing her emotions so openly, others might figure out her secret without his help. Acknowledging the reprimand, Yui nods and accepts her mistake. She apologizes again before they both refocus on sorting and filing the papers. Over in the accounting department, Masubu gets tasked with retrieving a document from the warehouse archives. He quickly finds it, appreciating how the recent cleanup effort made the section much easier to navigate. As he prepares to leave, a loud crash from a nearby room grabs his attention. Worrying something might have happened, he hurries to check and finds Yui on the floor, wincing as she rubs her lower back. Their eyes meet, and they instinctively call out to each other in excitement. Realizing where they are, though, they quickly revert to using formal last names. Yumi explains that several items fell suddenly, startling her and causing her to fall. Masubu scans the room and immediately notices the disarray in the planning department's archives, a stark contrast to the neatly organized accounting section. He silently wonders how they even managed to find anything in the mess. Admitting the problem, Yui tells him that management has already instructed her team to clean it up. She starts gathering the scattered items, muttering about finding a temporary place to store them. Noticing her struggle, Masubu begins helping her pick up the mess. Still cautious about being seen together, Yui protests, insisting he doesn't need to help. Masubu ignores her protests, quipping that her department clearly isn't organized enough to handle it alone. Despite the risk of being caught, Masubu can't help but feel happy that these little moments in the office still allow him to see Yui. While sorting through the disorganized archives, he carries a flag and calls out to Yui, hoping she knows where it belongs. Yui suddenly appears next to him, her expression shifting to excitement as she recognizes the flag is the exact one she used during her first presale events when she first entered the company. For a brief moment, she drops her guarded demeanor, revealing the Yui he knows outside of work. But just as quickly, she reverts to her cold, professional attitude and instructs him to place the flag in a corner. She returns to a corner to organize more items while repeatedly reminding herself to remain in work mode so she won't get caught up in sharing intimate things with Masubu. Masubu obeys, though he wonders if their rule about staying distant during work hours still needs to apply, especially since they're alone at the moment. As they continue tidying up in silence, Yui reaches for an upper shelf. Masubu offers to handle it, but she insists on doing it herself. Hesitantly, she asks him to hold the ladder steady while she climbs. He agrees, holding it firmly as she organizes the shelf. From his position, Masubu notices her skirt and feels a wave of relief that he's the one helping her, not someone else. He eventually lets go of the ladder so he can call out to her, suggesting she come down and let him handle the task. When she refuses, he decides to remind her that she is wearing a skirt today. Yui freezes in shock as the realization hits her, and her sudden movements make the ladder wobble. She loses her balance and topples over, but Masubu catches her just in time. Holding each other tightly, they remind themselves of where they are, but the close proximity draws them closer. Just as they're about to kiss, Yui's friends from the planning department burst into the room, announcing that they are ready to help Yui with the cleaning. Masubu and Yui manage to hide themselves before they get caught, squeezing into a tight space to avoid being seen. In their cramped hiding spot, Masubu struggles to maintain an awkward position without touching Yui or knocking over a nearby signboard. Yui, sensing his discomfort, whispers for him to relax and touch her if needed to keep them hidden. Masubu complies, understanding that if he falls, their secret will be found out. Finding it easier to be in the new position, they remain perfectly still until Yui's friends eventually leave. Once the coast is clear, they breathe a sigh of relief, agreeing it's best to maintain their professional distance at work to avoid a similar incident. A few days later, their colleague Shizuno announces she has 7 tickets to a baseball game, earning an excited reaction from Masubu, a diehard fan. On game day, Yui finds herself among the group with Masubu, who silently celebrates the chance to share one of his favorite activities with her despite being in the presence of others in the office. Throughout the game, Masugu enthusiastically explains the rules and strategies to a confused Yui. When their team scores, Masugu, caught up in the moment, clasps her hand. Realizing their coworkers might see, he glances around but is relieved to find everyone engrossed in the game. Later, the two retrieve snacks for the group. In the bustling crowd, Masugu suggests holding hands, reasoning it's less suspicious in the chaos. Yui agrees, enjoying the moment despite her initial hesitation. As they return to the stadium, their team hits a home run. Masugu, overwhelmed with joy, hugs Yui, forgetting their surroundings. To their surprise, Shizuno joins in the hug, caught up in her own excitement about the game. Relieved that Shizuno suspects nothing, they return to their seats. Yui leans toward Masugu and whispers that next time they should attend a game alone the next time so they can enjoy each other's presence without any worry. Yui and her friends head to a convenience store during lunch, each picking out their meals. However, Yui's focus isn't just on food. She discreetly checks the shelves for her newly developed snack product. Her heart sinks when she notices that barely anyone has touched it. The lack of interest in her work weighs heavily on her. The next morning, Shizuno starts her day early as usual. She exits the train and begins her walk when she bumps into a male colleague from her company. The man greets her with a compliment on her dedication, pointing out that she always arrives early. Shizuno chuckles and modestly returns the compliment, but he admits that he's only there to finish leftover paperwork from the previous day. They exchange lighthearted chatter before Shizuno excuses herself, claiming she needs to make a quick stop before heading to work. The man nods and continues on his way while Shizuno veers off to a small cafe nearby. Relieved to have a quiet moment to herself, she settles into a booth and flips through the menu, contemplating what to order with her coffee. Her peaceful morning takes an unexpected turn when Kizuki walks into the cafe. The waitress, assuming they're friends, seats him in the same booth as Shizuno. Disappointed at having her solitude interrupted, Shizuno sighs inwardly but forces a polite smile. When they both attempt to place their orders at the same time, an awkward standoff ensues as they insist the other go first. Their exaggerated politeness only heightens the tension, making the air between them tense. Meanwhile, Yui is on her way to work, riding the train while anxiously scrolling through her phone. She checks online for any buzz about her new snack product, but to her dismay, there's still no chatter. Yui unexpectedly bumps into Masugu. They exchange polite greetings, slipping back into their usual professional dynamic. However, as they walk together, Masugu notices something off about her demeanor. Concerned, he asks if something is bothering her, mentioning that she seemed down during their phone call the night before. Yui brushes off his concern, blaming her mood on the overtime she's been putting in lately. Sensing she's hiding something, Masugu shifts the conversation to her new product. Yui nods and agrees that it's exciting, though her subdued tone betrays her true feelings. Back at the cafe, Shizuno and Kizuki receive their food, only to realize they ordered the exact same meal. Shizuno feels even more awkward and watches as Kizuki starts eating, silently encouraging her to do the same. Searching for a way to break the tension, Shizuno tries to make small talk. She tells Kizuki that he shouldn't feel obligated to wait for her if he finishes first. As Shizuno continues to chatter aimlessly, Kizuki interrupts her gently, pointing out that her food is getting cold and encouraging her to eat. He reassures her that she doesn't need to feel obligated to make conversation, mentioning that he actually prefers quiet mornings alone at the cafe. Shizuno feels a wave of relief at their shared appreciation for peaceful solitude. She excuses herself, saying she'll focus on work while finishing her breakfast. Kizuki nods in agreement and pulls out a book he's been meaning to read, settling into his own quiet routine. As Shizuno alternates between bites of her sandwich and typing away on her laptop, she sneaks a glance at Kizuki. There's something comforting about his calm demeanor, and she finds herself admiring his maturity and quiet confidence. For once, she appreciates a moment where she doesn't feel the need to fill the silence with meaningless chatter. Time slips by and Kizuki eventually closes his book, announcing that he'll head to the office ahead of her. Before leaving, he surprises Shizuno by saying he enjoyed their breakfast together and that his opinion of her as a drunk has shifted. Shizuno freezes, caught off guard by the comment. Realizing that he must be referring to an embarrassing incident from the baseball game, she suddenly worries about how he perceives her. Before she can respond, Kizuki is already heading toward the door. She sighs, trying to shake off the remark, and resolves to focus on her work with a smile. Meanwhile, at the office, Yui sits at her desk, anxiously refreshing the webpage tracking her product's performance. Despite using Maria's online influence to promote the snack, there's still no buzz. Yui's frustration grows when she overhears colleagues from another department celebrating the success of a different product launch. Jealous and disheartened, Yui begins drafting an email to her superiors explaining that her product needs more time to gain traction, since it's entirely new and not just a repackaged item. Just as she's deep in thought, Kizuki suddenly approaches her desk, startling her into closing her email window. He hands her a stack of documents, explaining that the section chief has assigned them to input new data. Without waiting for a response, he returns to his own desk, leaving Yui simmering with frustration. As Yui works through the data, her irritation mounts. She feels overlooked, especially since no one, not even her team, seems excited about her product launch. When Chiharu, a teammate, offers her some chocolates to try, Yui snaps, refusing outright and raising her voice. The entire office goes silent, shocked by her uncharacteristic outburst. Realizing her mistake, Yui instantly regrets her behavior. That evening, Yui visits Masugu. Without much thought or warning, she had decided to head to his place seeking solace. Masugu is visibly surprised to see her, especially since she looks completely drained. Welcoming her in, Masugu quickly sets about preparing food and drinks for them, though he can't hide his concern. He watches her closely, noticing the exhaustion and frustration etched on her face, wondering what could have brought her to his doorstep in such a state. After handing her a beer, Masugu listens intently as Yui immediately dives into a rant. She vents about how the section chief dumped extra work on her while she was already busy checking the progress of her product. Her frustration spills over as she complains about how no one in the office even noticed the launch of her snack. Instead, her coworkers were all abuzz with excitement over another product, one that didn't require as much effort or innovation. Yui's voice grows louder as she continues, her irritation clear. She laments how, even in convenience stores, her product sits untouched on the shelves. The sight of it gathering dust had crushed her spirit, making her feel as though all her hard work had amounted to nothing. Finally, her words falter and tears begin to pool in her eyes as she finishes her rant. Masugu, taken aback by the depth of her emotions, gently reassures her that it's normal to feel upset, especially when she's invested so much time and effort. He reminds her that all the departments in the company care about the success of every product launch, even if it doesn't always seem like it. He also mentions the difficulty they faced securing the budget for her product, proof that her team had been rooting for her from the start. Encouraging her to be more honest about her feelings, Masugu advises Yui to talk openly with her section chief if she feels overwhelmed or undervalued. The next day, Yui heads to a nearby convenience store to pick up snacks as a gesture of apology for her coworkers. While browsing, she overhears two students debating whether to buy her snack. Her heart pounds as she watches them deliberate, and to her delight, they ultimately decide to add the product to their basket. Overwhelmed with joy, Yui smiles to herself, finally feeling validated. Later, Yui walks into work with renewed energy. During lunch, Yui feels a bit drained from back-to-back morning meetings. Her two friends join her, chatting about how busy the planning department has been with meetings and data entry. However, they agree that the workload feels more manageable when they have a good meal to look forward to. As Yui takes a bite of her food, her ears perk up at the sound of Masugu's name mentioned by the table next to hers. Pretending not to notice, she leans in slightly to eavesdrop, her heart swelling as she hears the girls complimenting her boyfriend. They praise his reliability, tall stature, and overall likability, clearly impressed by him. But as the conversation continues, Yui notices that their admiration might border on infatuation. Her chest tightens with worry, and she begins to wonder if Masugu's good traits make him too popular for comfort. Yui's friends, who had been discreetly listening to the conversation at the next table, nod in agreement as they admit that Masugu is indeed likable. Their remarks only deepen Yui's self-consciousness as she glances at the girls praising her boyfriend. Compared to them, she feels plain in her casual attire and minimal makeup. She begins to notice how little effort she has been putting into her appearance, even when spending time with Masugu. A flicker of insecurity rises as she wonders if she is doing enough to keep his interest. The next evening, Masugu immediately senses something unusual. Yui, seated neatly in his room, is dressed far more elegantly than her typical relaxed style. Her composed demeanor makes him uneasy as he considers whether something might have gone wrong at work again. He decides to address her unusual behavior, but before he can say much, Yui remarks that it feels warm in the room, her tone suggestive as she tries to set a romantic mood. Misinterpreting her intentions, Masugu promptly lowers the temperature of the air conditioner, believing she's uncomfortable. Yui, determined to get her point across, tries again. She hints at being in the mood for intimacy, hoping to spark a reaction, but instead, Masugu grows more concerned, realizing that something is off. Taking her hands, he reassures her that she can always be honest with him and speak her mind. Finally, Yui confesses the reason behind her actions. She explains how she overheard the girls at the cafeteria admiring Masugu and how it made her feel inadequate. She admits her insecurities and reveals her desire to appear more appealing to him. He assures her that she has nothing to worry about, reminding her that she is the one he loves and no one else. He admits to himself that he often worries about how popular she is among their male colleagues. He tells her there's no need for her to force herself to appear sexy. His words trigger something in Yui, so she removes her top and tackles him with a kiss, startling him with her boldness. Despite his initial shock, Masugu gently asks if they can take things slow since he hasn't gotten the chance to shower yet. Yui refuses, telling him she plans to serve him for the evening. However, after a short while, she starts feeling flustered and nervous and admits she might have gotten ahead of herself. Masubu, overwhelmed by his affection for her, carries her to the bed and pins her gently. He expresses how happy he is to share such intimate moments with her, relishing in the knowledge that their bond is unique and special. The next morning, Yui finds herself lost in thought, her mind replaying the events of the previous night. In an elevator, Chiharu notices Yui's distracted and slightly fatigued appearance, so she asks her if she's feeling okay. Yui brushes it off with a vague excuse about their busy schedule. Later, girls from the cafeteria join them in the elevator. As they chat, she overhears them once again praising Masubu, their admiration undiminished. Instead of feeling jealous, Yui experiences a wave of fondness, taking quiet pride in the fact that the man they admire so much is hers. When the elevator doors open again, Masubu steps in. He pauses for a moment when he spots Yui before positioning himself behind her and next to the girls. The girl sees the opportunity to ask him about his weekends, clearly fishing for information. Masubu, knowing Yui might appreciate some reassurance, casually mentions that he usually spends his weekends with his girlfriend. When the girls and Masubu exit on their floor, Chiharu quickly approaches Yui and asks her if she heard that Masubu has a girlfriend. Yui, playing it cool, responds with feigned indifference, remarking that it isn't surprising given Masubu's kind nature. Masubu enjoys a rare relaxing day at work, with the entire office seemingly adopting a vacation mindset. Conversations about summer vacation plans fill the air, with his team members excitedly sharing their upcoming trips. Maria mentions that she plans to visit Nagoya. Shizuno, on the other hand, says she will be working through the break since tourist spots are always too crowded for her liking. Maria and Shizuno suddenly turn their attention to Masubu, their curiosity piqued about his own vacation plans. At that moment, Masubu recalls the heated debate he had with Yui a month ago, when they struggled to decide on a destination for their summer vacation. Unable to plan with a travel agency, they decided to discuss their vacation in Yui's apartment. They sat down with several pamphlets sprawled across Yui's table. Masubu had immediately vetoed Yui's first choice, Okinawa, pointing out that typhoon season could ruin their trip. Yui was insistent, arguing that there were plenty of things to do, but Masubu remained unconvinced, especially after seeing the lengthy itinerary she had prepared. He pointed out that her schedule was overly ambitious, packed with too many activities to fit into their short vacation time. In contrast, Masubu preferred something more laid back. His ideal trip was to Hokkaido, where they could enjoy the onsen, go on scenic drives, and eat at cozy grill restaurants. However, Yui found his idea boring, wanting something more thrilling and memorable. Growing tired of the discussion, Masubu had casually said they could go wherever Yui wanted, just to end the debate. Unfortunately, he failed to realize that his offhanded tone made it seem like he didn't care at all. This only worsened the situation as Yui, feeling dismissed, suddenly declared that they should just cancel the trip altogether if they couldn't find a way to make it enjoyable for both of them. Realizing his mistake, Masubu immediately reached for her hands, reassuring her that the destination didn't matter as long as they were together. He then, somewhat hesitantly, admitted that what he truly wanted was to experience a private bath with her since it would be their first trip as a couple. The confession caught Yui off guard, and her frustration quickly melted away into embarrassment. To shift the mood, she teasingly invited Masubu to take a bath with her right then and there, knowing now that it was something he secretly wanted. Squeezed together in Yui's small bathtub, she enjoyed the intimacy of the moment, but Masubu, feeling cramped and uncomfortable, couldn't help but think that a spacious hotel bath would be much better. Yui suggested they consider a new hotel in Yamanashi, hinting that it might be the perfect compromise for their trip. Returning to the present, Masubu finally responds to his colleagues, telling them that he plans to visit Yamanashi, his hometown. As the workday comes to an end, Yui eagerly finishes her tasks, excited to head home and start packing for their long-awaited trip. Just as she's about to leave, she receives a text from Masubu, who is checking in on her as usual. She smiles, ready to reply, but before she can type out her response, sudden chaos erupts in the office. An emergency has broken out in the planning department, and the entire team is in disarray. Itsuro immediately informs Yui and Yukiko that they will have to work overtime to resolve the issue. Yui's hopes of leaving work early to prepare for her trip vanish in an instant. Meanwhile, Masubu grows increasingly concerned as the hours pass without any word from Yui. She had left her phone unattended in her bag to avoid distractions, completely focused on ensuring that the products were ready for delivery to the launch site. Itsuro begins to feel the weight of the looming deadline. With frustration in his voice, he informs Yui and Yukiko that they will likely need to work through the night to finish everything. Yui's stomach sinks. The realization of not being able to go on vacation begins to settle. Even though she knows Masubu would understand, disappointment wells up inside her. But instead of dwelling on it, she grits her teeth and pushes forward, determined to finish the work as soon as possible. To her luck, the on-site team unexpectedly arrives at the office to lend a hand. With the extra support, they make rapid progress, and to everyone's immense relief, they complete everything on time. Yui even manages to catch the last train home, exhausted but victorious. The products are ready for launch, and against all odds, her summer plans are still intact. Walking the quiet streets towards her apartment, she suddenly feels a firm grip on her arm. Startled, she turns to find Masubu looking at her with concern written all over his face. He had been waiting for her, worried sick after receiving no replies to his messages. Seeing the exhaustion on her face, his worry melts into relief. He gently cups her face in his hand, brushing his thumb over her cheek, a silent but tender reminder that their trip is still happening. Yui smiles at him, leaning into his touch, feeling the weight of the night's stress fade away. The next morning, Shizuno enjoys a peaceful moment in her favorite cafe, sipping her drink at a slow pace. Keisuke arrives soon after, taking the seat in front of her. When she hears that he decided to skip the summer crowds and instead take his vacation in autumn, she realizes how similar they are. Without exchanging many words, they quietly enjoy their breakfast together, appreciating the unspoken understanding between them. Meanwhile, Masubu and Yui embark on their long-awaited trip. Their first stop is a traditional dessert shop that serves a limited-edition raindrop cake only available on weekends. Yui eagerly scoots up a spoonful, her eyes lighting up at the jiggly texture. The refreshing taste and smooth consistency bring a delighted grin to her face. Masubu watches her fondly, feeling a deep sense of happiness being on this trip with her. Even though they're in his hometown, everything feels fresh and exciting simply because he's experiencing it with Yui. Noticing a speck of soybean powder on his cheek, Yui leans in and gently dabs it off with a handkerchief. Just as she's about to pull away, a small child nearby catches them in the act. Yui confidently links her arm with his, playfully declaring that it's completely normal for couples to act this way. However, their casual moment of affection takes an unexpected turn when a local TV reporter approaches them. The reporter enthusiastically asks if they would like to be interviewed. Yui, despite her boldness moments ago, suddenly finds herself flustered. The idea of being on TV and publicly declaring their relationship overwhelms her. When the reporter persists, Yui panics and dashes away. As they make their way to their next destination, Masubu teases Yui about her unnecessary panic over the reporters. He informs her that the station is only a small local network, meaning no one from their workplace would have seen the interview even if they had stayed. Yui huffs in embarrassment, though her irritation is short-lived. Her mood instantly brightens when they arrive at a vast field of sunflowers, stretching as far as the eye can see. Excited, Yui dashes ahead, taking picture after picture to capture the golden scenery. Meanwhile, Masubu leisurely trails behind, enjoying a different view of his own. Masubu finds himself completely captivated by her. To him, nothing in the world could compare to this moment. Overcome with affection, he suddenly rushes up to her and steals a quick kiss, catching her off guard. As the day comes to an end, they finally check into a cozy hotel featuring a private bath. Yui immediately feels that the expense was well worth it, relishing the rare chance to unwind in such luxury. She begins to look forward to tomorrow's adventures, hoping she'll have enough energy to get up early and continue sightseeing. As they lounge together, Masubu suddenly grows uncharacteristically shy. He hands Yui a beer before hesitantly bringing up a memory from several years ago, during their company's training camp. He reminds her of the night when most of their coworkers had gotten drunk and passed out, leaving just the two of them to clean up the mess. He confesses that it was that night he fell helplessly in love with her. Yui stares at him, momentarily stunned. The sincerity in his voice and the way he gazes at her with nothing but adoration makes her heart race. Feeling bold, she scoots closer and presses a kiss to his lips, deepening the moment between them. The next morning, Yui is reluctant to leave the bed, clinging to Masubu and demanding more of his attention. Masubu willingly gives in to her whims, enjoying the intimacy brought in by their first vacation together. It isn't until room service arrives with breakfast that they finally decide to get up and start their day. Masubu takes Yui around the countryside, showing her all the must-visit sites and food spots. Yui excitedly buys more snacks than she probably should, struggling to decide what to bring home and what to keep for herself. As she browses around, her eyes land on a grape stand. Masubu visibly stiffens beside her, wondering if the stand belongs to his family, since they have a business growing and selling grapes. Yui buys some grapes anyway, eager to try them. They find a spot to sit, and as she pops one into her mouth, her eyes widen in pleasant surprise. The sweetness is far beyond what she expected, and when she tries the grapes at the top of the bunch, she notices that each one has a slightly different taste. Masubu proudly claims that the grapes grown by his family are even better. Yui hums in thought as she takes in the peaceful scenery before her. She suddenly finds herself wanting to visit this town again, not just for the sights and food, but to meet Masubu's family and taste their famous grapes firsthand. The next morning, Masubu and Yui wake up feeling refreshed, their bodies still tangled together beneath the sheets. With a few hours left before breakfast, they contemplate whether they have time for another intimate moment. Masugu, eager to show Yui how much he loves her again, leans in to kiss her, rolling on top of her. However, Yui declares that she would much rather enjoy another relaxing soak in the private hot spring before breakfast, since they will be making the trip back that day. Finally soaking in their last bath in their hotel, Yui closes her eyes, savoring the moment, wishing their vacation could last a little longer. Still, as much as she enjoys their peaceful getaway, she admits that the trip has left her feeling energized and ready to give her best at work once they return home. Masugu smiles at her thoughtful words, appreciating her hardworking nature. When she turns to him with bright, expectant eyes, waiting for him to share his own thoughts, he hesitates for a moment before admitting that he's been thinking about taking a higher certification exam. If he passes, it could help him rise through the ranks at work a little faster. Yui's eyes light up at his ambition, and a sudden idea sparks in her mind. She suggests that they set goals for the next year. If one of them fails to achieve their goal, they'll have to pay for their next trip to Yamanashi. Masugu starts to protest that his exam is incredibly difficult to pass, but when he sees the excitement on Yui's face, he finds himself agreeing to their wager, deciding to enjoy the moment and look forward to returning with her next year. When they return to the office, Masugu's coworkers immediately notice that he has a slight tan from his trip, but they don't press him for too many details. Maria, who had gone to Nagoya for her vacation, shares some snacks she brought back. To Masugu's surprise, Maria suddenly announces that she also has some treats for Yui, revealing an unexpected bond between them. His eyes widen in horror as he realizes that Yui, being her usual friendly self, will likely return the favor by giving Maria souvenirs from Yamanashi. His fears are confirmed when Maria returns to their department with her hands full of Yamanashi snacks. She tells Masugu that Yui had enthusiastically talked about her trip and even recommended places Maria should visit if she ever decides to go. As Masugu listens, his face grows warm, a light blush creeping onto his cheeks. Masugu feels a sense of pride after hearing how much Yui enjoyed their trip. He silently vows to continue making her happy by giving his best at work so they can enjoy more vacations together. One evening, Yui and Masugu sit side by side at the table, each immersed in their work. Both had set ambitious goals for the year, determined to see them through. Masugu is focused on studying for his certification exam, flipping through his notes and highlighting important text. Meanwhile, Yui is meticulously reviewing the data from her last product, fine-tuning her proposal for an upcoming presentation. The quiet hum of concentration fills their apartment, and the occasional sound of pages turning or Yui tapping away at her laptop takes up most of their conversation, while they both vow to achieve their goals. The next morning, Yui confidently presents her ideas for a new product to the section chief. She's nervous but hopeful. To her relief, her efforts are met with positive feedback. While there are several revisions needed, she takes pride in the progress she's making toward her goal. Encouraged by the response, she resolves to keep improving, knowing she's heading in the right direction. As she walks to get ready for a meeting, she overhears a few colleagues praising a newer staff member for a product that has been performing exceptionally well. A pang of doubt creeps into her heart. She can't help but feel a little discouraged, but rather than letting the thought consume her, she reminds herself that progress, no matter how small, is still progress. Yui and Itsuro head toward a meeting room for a discussion with someone from the new business development department. Yui is excited about the opportunity and eager to push her project forward. Itsuro, however, groans, muttering that he's not looking forward to the meeting since he doesn't mix well with Hiromi, the department's representative. Hiromi was once a star in the sales department, known for his sharp business instincts and no-nonsense approach. As soon as the meeting begins, Hiromi wastes no time getting down to business. He takes a quick look at the planning department's data and immediately calls it too complicated. With a firm voice, he lists several ways they need to improve their current system, instructing them to simplify their process. Yui watches in fascination. This is the first time she's working directly with Hiromi, and she can't help but be impressed by his efficiency. Itsuro, however, doesn't back down so easily. He attempts to counter Hiromi's suggestions, arguing that the planning department's process exists for a reason and leaves little to no errors. But Hiromi is unrelenting, pointing out inefficiencies and even deeming some procedures unnecessary. The conversation grows more heated until Itsuro suddenly excuses himself to take a call, leaving Yui alone with Hiromi. What happens next catches Yui completely off guard. Hiromi looks directly at her and offers her a position in the new business development department. Hiromi explains that his department is in dire need of fresh talent and that he's been keeping an eye on her work. Her last product proposal, despite being a small step in her current department, stood out to him. He believes that in the planning department, where so many employees are vying for recognition, it may take years for her contributions to truly shine. But in the new business development department, which is still in its early stages, she has the potential to make an immediate impact and get the recognition she deserves. Yui listens in stunned silence. She had no idea Hiromi even knew about her project, let alone thought highly of her skills. The weight of his words settles on her shoulders, and she realizes this isn't just a casual offer. It's an opportunity that could change the course of her career. The idea of switching departments is overwhelming, and she isn't sure how she feels about it yet. Unable to make a decision on the spot, she decides to take a detour after work. That evening, she meets up with Masubu at a department store where products from the new business development department are being sold. Masubu observes the bustling department store, surprised at how many customers fill the aisles even on a weeknight. Curious, he samples one of the company's products and finds himself genuinely impressed. He can't help but acknowledge that catching the attention of the new business development department is a significant achievement for Yui. Yuki, however, feels a wave of conflict as she takes a bite of the product herself. It is undeniably delicious and beautifully packaged, a level of quality that seems far beyond what she is used to working on. As they exit the store with a box of chocolates from their company, doubts overwhelm her. The possibility of transferring departments is tempting, offering her new challenges and greater recognition, but she worries about the implications of leaving her current role. Her original goal of making a name for herself in the planning department still holds meaning, and abandoning it now feels like a betrayal of her past efforts and her colleagues. Unfinished projects, pending proposals, and the inevitable office gossip weigh heavily on her mind. She also realizes that if she transfers, the bet she made with Masubu about launching a new product in the planning department will no longer be valid. The mounting concerns leave her flustered. Before she can spiral further, Masubu gently pinches her cheeks, breaking her train of thought. The sudden gesture catches her off guard, pulling her back to the present. He tells her to stop fretting and to think for herself instead of worrying about what others will think. A reassuring pat on the head follows before he signals that they should start moving again. Any further discussion will have to wait, as missing their train home is not an option. The quiet walk to the station does little to ease her troubled thoughts. The following morning, she does her best to maintain her usual energy during her presentation. She stays focused, but her mind keeps drifting back to the uncertainty surrounding her future. Chiharu notices the shift in her demeanor and expresses concern. However, Yui brushes it off, unwilling to voice the turmoil she is experiencing. As the day progresses, the weight of her responsibilities in the planning department becomes more evident. The workload remains demanding, and despite her desire to push forward with her proposal, she knows that more pressing tasks need attention. The realization dawns on her that transferring to a new department might provide her with the freedom to focus on projects she is passionate about. The next morning, an unexpected email from Hiromi appears in her inbox. He has sent an extensive collection of materials related to her project, filled with detailed analysis and valuable insights. Before she can fully absorb the information, a phone call interrupts her thoughts. A wave of panic sets in as she realizes she has forgotten to complete a task from the previous day. The oversight has resulted in a delay in one of the company's ongoing projects. She gets called to the section chief's office. After 6 years in the company, making such a basic error feels humiliating. Leaving her boss's office, Yui is met with the encouraging faces of her colleagues. Their support reassures her, but a lingering sense of doubt gnaws at her. She worries that her recent indecisiveness is causing her to make unnecessary mistakes, affecting not only her own progress but also the efficiency of her team. The thought weighs heavily on her mind, making it difficult to focus on anything else. That evening, she makes an unplanned visit to Masubu, seeking comfort in his presence. Overwhelmed by frustration from her mistakes at work, she pleads with him to help her forget the awful day. However, even after seeking solace in his embrace, her worries refuse to fade. The nagging thoughts that no matter where she goes, she fears she will carry the same uncertainties and struggles into a new department. Masubu, sensing her turmoil, playfully rubs her head. He tells her that so long as she is reflecting on her actions, then she is already on the right path. After calming down, Masubu walks Yui to her train station, despite telling her she can stay with him for the evening. She decides against it, knowing she has responsibilities to take care of before the next day. She apologizes for troubling him so late, but Masubu simply smiles, reminding her that she is always welcome to visit and vent whenever she needs to. The next morning, Yui unexpectedly crosses paths with Hiromi. Without hesitation, he asks if she has given any thought to transferring to the new business development department. He extends an invitation to join an upcoming seminar, believing it might give her the push she needs to make a decision. Before she can respond, he notices the proposal she is carrying and inquires about it. Yui admits that she had missed the deadline for submission and has no intention of pursuing it any further. Hiromi, however, disagrees. He insists that good ideas are invaluable to the company, regardless of timing, and urges her to submit it anyway. Still hesitant, Yui remains unconvinced. Seeing her reluctance, Hiromi decides to take a more direct approach. He calls her a coward. The remark stings, but it has the desired effect. Determined to prove him wrong, Yui gathers her courage and walks straight to her section chief's office. As she predicted, the section chief is skeptical. He knows she has yet to complete the revisions he previously requested, and with her current workload, taking on a new project seems impractical. However, for the first time, Yui stands her ground. She insists that she can refine the proposal along the way and that she is fully capable of spearheading the new project. Taking a deep breath, she finally admits what she's been too afraid to say. She would rather dedicate herself to this proposal than continue handling her existing responsibilities. The section chief studies her for a moment before responding. He acknowledges that Yui has always been reliable, which is why he has continuously assigned her multiple tasks. Until now, he had assumed she was satisfied with her workload. Realizing that she has other ambitions, he agrees to consider the proposal and even offers to adjust her responsibilities accordingly. With her eyes shining from a mixture of relief and excitement, Yui walks back to her desk. Shiharu, having observed the entire exchange, runs up to her and congratulates her. Reaching her desk, Yui takes a deep, calming breath. For the first time in a long while, she has stood up for herself. As the realization sinks in, she suspects that Hiromi has orchestrated the entire situation to push her into taking action. His challenge had forced her to confront her own doubts and make a firm decision. That evening, she rewards herself with a slice of cake from the new business development department's product line. The rich flavors melt in her mouth, and as she licks the frosting from her fingers, a renewed sense of determination fills her. The next day, Yui visits Hiromi to apologize for her previous behavior, acknowledging that she had been dismissive and hesitant when he had only been trying to help. She then formally declines his offer to transfer, explaining that she has decided to focus on launching another product within the planning department. However, she surprises him by requesting to join the seminar, eager to learn from his department's strategies and expertise. Yui openly admits that it was Hiromi's insights that helped her recognize the flaws in her approach to product development. His attention to detail and structured methodology are what make his department so successful, and she hopes to incorporate those principles into her own projects. Hiromi, taken aback by her honesty, raises an eyebrow. He is amused by her determination but makes it clear that he has no interest in a one-sided arrangement. If she plans to benefit from the knowledge of his department, then he too will make full use of whatever the planning department has to offer. By the end of a long and exhausting week, Yui and Masubu reward themselves with a visit to a stone spa. The warmth and relaxation seep into their tired muscles, and Masubu feels a sense of contentment watching Yui truly unwind. Her usual work-focused mindset fades away, replaced by an affectionate and playful demeanor. As she clings to him, resting her head against his side, Yui playfully argues that being near Masubu is the true healing she needs the most. One evening after work, Yui and Masubu plan to go on a date, but Yui finds herself caught up in a last-minute project. With time to spare, Masubu decides to occupy himself rather than wait idly. He ends up at a small grilled chicken skewer place, ordering a drink and some food. It has been a while since he's enjoyed some solitude, so he takes his time savoring the moment. As he eats, a hiking commercial plays on the restaurant's small television, momentarily capturing his attention. The idea of going on a hike intrigues him, and soon, his thoughts drift to Yui and hiking gear. The thought makes him smile, but he quickly catches himself, scolding himself for thinking of his girlfriend even during his alone time. His distraction, however, is short-lived. A group of men at a nearby table grumbles about their wives, complaining about how married life has changed things. Masubu listens absent-mindedly, idly wondering if he too would end up feeling the same resentment toward his future spouse. He pictures Yui years from now, but instead of imagining a bitter or distant partner, he sees a warm domestic life filled with simple joys such as coming home to her smile. Just then, one of the men receives a call from his wife. Despite his earlier complaints, he quickly excuses himself from the group, eager to pick her up from the station. His friends laugh, teasing him for being the most devoted husband among them despite his constant whining. Masubu finds himself grinning, realizing that love endures in ways that aren't always obvious. After an hour, he returns to the station, just in time to meet Yui. She arrives looking tired but brightens immediately upon seeing him. However, her expression quickly shifts into a pout as she notices the faint scent of alcohol on him. She frowns, complaining that she has been looking forward to drinking with him that evening. To appease her, Masubu offers to treat her to anything she wants. Yui's mood instantly lifts, and she declares that she wants something fancy: wine, cheese, and a decadent dessert to top it off. After their indulgent meal, Yui is finally satisfied. They stroll through the streets, admiring the festive decorations and Christmas-themed displays. Yui pauses by a shop window, admiring the delicate accessories on display. Masubu watches her, suddenly realizing that nearly 6 months have passed since they started dating. On the train ride home, he overhears a group of girls discussing how one of their boyfriends had put great effort into their anniversary celebration. They gush about how cherished they feel when their partners plan thoughtful surprises. Hearing their conversation, Masubu begins to wonder if he should do something special for Yui. Their 6-month anniversary is approaching, and with Christmas just around the corner, it seems like the perfect time to prepare something meaningful. The next day at work, Masugu scrolls through his phone, searching for gift ideas. He grins at the thought of Yui's reaction, already picturing her excitement. Lost in his own world, he fails to notice Maria approaching. She asks what has him in such a good mood so early in the morning. Startled, Masugu quickly tries to recover, asking Maria what kind of surprise gift she would like to receive. His question only raises more suspicion as Maria and Shizuno exchange glances. Later in the evening, while Masugu relaxes with Yui, he notices that she doesn't wear many accessories. He begins to imagine how cute she would look with something like earrings, a necklace, or even a ring. As Yui heads to the bathroom, he takes the opportunity to scroll through his phone again, searching for the perfect gift. Yui suddenly returns, startling him. He quickly locks his phone and tries to calm his racing heart, hoping he doesn't appear suspicious. Yui, unaware of his secret, invites him to a dessert event on Saturday. He hesitates before declining, claiming that he needs to study for his upcoming certification exams. In reality, he plans to use that time to buy her a present. On Saturday, Masugu visits a specialty department store looking for jewelry. He quickly becomes overwhelmed by the sheer number of choices: rings, bracelets, necklaces, couple accessories, and personalized pieces. A sales lady notices his hesitation and offers to help, asking questions about his relationship to understand what might suit his girlfriend best. As Masugu envisions Yui wearing various types of accessories, he finds himself drawn to a pair of simple yet elegant rings. The sales lady suggests that couple rings are a meaningful gift, symbolizing deep affection. Without thinking too much, he decides to purchase them. Before finalizing the order, the sales lady offers an engraving service and even suggests leaving the rings with them until he can confirm Yui's ring size. Masugu agrees, feeling pleased with his decision. Meanwhile, Yui finishes up the dessert event with her friend Chiharu. As they leave, they decide to head to a cafe. Yui glances across the street and suddenly spots Masugu. The next day, Masugu finds himself lost in daydreams. He envisions taking Yui on a fancy date, presenting her with the rings, and sharing a heartfelt moment where they declare their love for each other. In reality, he is currently at Yui's place, secretly planning to measure her ring size while she sleeps. Masugu hopes to use the classic string and marker trick, carefully wrapping a thin string around her finger once she dozes off. However, Yui grows suspicious of his sudden visit. She had already found it odd that he insisted on coming over despite his supposed study schedule. Her suspicions deepen when Masugu casually claims he was home all day, contradicting what she saw in town. That night, Masugu eagerly coaxes Yui to bed, waiting for his opportunity. When she finally drifts into sleep, he carefully measures her finger. Satisfied, he quietly celebrates his success. However, in the middle of the night, Yui wakes up to see Masugu on his phone again. The unease in her chest grows. The next day at work, Masugu remains distracted, unable to focus due to his excitement. He plans to invite Yui to dinner on Friday, imagining the perfect moment to present his gift. He strategizes every detail, completely unaware that Yui's enthusiasm has dimmed over the weekend. Unlike Masugu, who is filled with anticipation, Yui spends the day feeling uneasy. She can't shake the feeling that Masugu is hiding something. Yui's mind remains restless as she worries about what will happen on Friday. Masugu's sudden request to spend time together lingers in her thoughts, filling her with unease. She struggles to focus on work, distracted by the uncertainty of what he could be hiding. Meanwhile, Masugu's plan is already falling apart. He struggles to secure a reservation at the ideal restaurant for their anniversary, and frustration mounts as time runs out. A message from Yui appears on his phone, asking to meet the next day, but he quickly replies that he's busy, insisting that their meeting will have to wait until Friday. Without checking if she responded, he leaves his phone behind and rushes to the store to pick up the rings. Navigating the busy streets, he grumbles over his failed dinner plans, hoping the rings will still make the day special. He barely makes it to the store before closing and finally retrieves the jewelry he had carefully chosen. The weight of the small box in his hands brings a sense of excitement, but it is short-lived when Yui unexpectedly appears behind him. Turning around, he finds Yui standing with narrowed eyes as she demands answers. She confronts him about seeing him in town last Saturday when he had claimed to be studying. The accusation leaves him scrambling for an excuse, but her stern gaze leaves no room for dishonesty. She suddenly insists on knowing what he is hiding behind his back, stepping closer to take a peek. Panic sets in as the thought of giving her the gift now crosses his mind, but he quickly dismisses it, knowing the timing must be right. He tries to reassure her, urging her to wait just one more day, but his reluctance only fuels her frustration. Determined to uncover the truth, Yui declares that she will spend the entire evening with him, ensuring he has no opportunity to hide anything else. Masugu inwardly panics as his carefully planned surprise unravels before his eyes. The confrontation shifts when Yui's expression changes. Her frustration fades into something more vulnerable, and she admits how much the secrecy has been affecting her. Doubt settles over her features as her body begins to tremble. For the first time, uncertainty fills her eyes and the thought of him wanting to break with her crosses her mind. Realizing the misunderstanding, Masugu immediately presents the gift bag, holding it out in front of her. He had intended to wait for the perfect moment, but seeing her so distressed makes him realize that keeping it hidden any longer is meaningless. Inside, she finds a jewelry box containing 2 silver bands, each carefully engraved with their names. Masugu shifts uncomfortably, unable to meet her gaze as if embarrassed by his own gesture. He tells her that she can at least wear it during holidays or keep it at home since it might give away their relationship if she wears it at work. Yui's response takes Masugu by surprise as she promises to wear the ring every day, showing no hesitation in displaying her love for him. A deep sense of relief washes over him as she apologizes, admitting that their 6-month anniversary had completely slipped her mind. Despite this, her tearful expression of gratitude makes it clear that she cherishes the gift and the thought behind it. The moment the door closes behind them, they waste no time in locking lips, the intensity of their emotions taking over. Clothes are discarded hastily, their need for each other undeniable. Masugu chuckles in amusement, teasing that they're both being too impatient, but neither of them cares. As they finally reach the bed, Masugu positions himself above Yui, ready to show her just how much she means to him. However, she interrupts him with a sudden question, asking about his original plans for tomorrow. A bit breathless, Masugu admits that he had intended to take her to a fancy restaurant with a beautiful night view, but everything was fully booked. The disappointment in his voice is evident, but Yui simply smiles, assuring him that she already feels incredibly loved just by being with him. Her eyes drift to his phone screen as she hears an alarm ring where the time displays midnight, officially marking their 6-month anniversary. A soft expression takes over her face as she lifts his hand and places a kiss on his ring. Whispering that she hopes to spend eternity loved by him, she seals her words with another deep kiss. The next day, Yui confidently presents her new Sakura-themed snack ideas to her section chief. He praises the concept and design, but after careful thought, he points out that the slogan lacks impact. While the idea is solid, he worries that it won't effectively reach their target audience. His critique sends Yui back to her desk, her shoulders slumping in disappointment. Just as discouragement threatens to take over, her eyes land on the simple silver band on her finger. A small, comforting warmth spreads through her chest. She had never been the type to ask for physical gifts, but now she understands how nice it feels to have something tangible that represents love and commitment. She smiles as memories of the past 6 months flood her mind. Their journey together hadn't been perfect, but everything had naturally fallen into place. Later, during their break, Yui and her friends leave their office. Her friends quickly notice how often she glances at her new ring, their curiosity piqued. Yui confesses that she has been in a relationship for the past 6 months. Her friends' reactions are nothing but supportive, though none of them are surprised. They had already suspected that she must have had a boyfriend all along. Their teasing words make Yui's cheeks flush as they remark on how much her boyfriend must love her. Yui feels giddy at their remarks, feeling a warm sense of happiness at being able to openly talk about her relationship now, even if she keeps Masugu's identity a secret. Unbeknownst to Yui's friends in the accounting department's office, Masugu sits at his desk, wearing the matching pair as a necklace tucked beneath his dress shirt. After ending work late one evening, Masugu sends a quick message to Yui, letting her know that he's finally heading home. The streets are illuminated with bright, festive lights, a clear reminder that Christmas is just around the corner. The sight makes him realize that this will be their first Christmas together as a couple. Since Christmas is an important occasion for couples in Japan, he begins to wonder what he can do to make it special for Yui. Before bed, he decides to call her, casually bringing up the topic of Christmas and asking if there's anything she would like to do. To his surprise, Yui seems uninterested, mentioning that since Christmas falls on a weekday this year, they will likely be too busy with work. Her nonchalant attitude puzzles Masugu, as he had fully expected her to be excited about the holiday. The next morning, Shizuno arrives at the office groaning about her upset stomach, blaming it on the excessive drinking she had done the night before. With the holiday season in full swing, she's been receiving more invitations to drinking parties, which have started to take a toll on her. She also adds that this time of year, their department gets an increasing amount of workload as she dumps a thick pile of paperwork onto Masugu's desk. Meanwhile, in the planning department, Itsuru finds himself just as overwhelmed, barely keeping up with his tasks. Yui, despite having her own fair share of work, offers to assist him. Later that evening, Yui stops by Masugu's apartment, deciding to unwind with dinner and a drink in his company. The familiar warmth of his home provides a much-needed break from her hectic schedule. However, when Masugu offers for her to stay the night, she declines, explaining that she didn't bring a change of clothes and has an early morning meeting to prepare for. As they eat, Masugu brings up her latest product proposal, curious if she has heard any updates since submitting it. Yui admits that she is anxious about the results and has been keeping herself busy to avoid dwelling on it too much. Unfortunately, this coping method has only made her even more swamped during the holiday season. While talking, her eyes drift to a stack of books on Masugu's desk, reminding her of his upcoming certification exams. Amused, she teases him, suggesting that he must be the type to cram everything at the last minute. Masubu, lightly offended, quickly fires back that Yui must be talking about herself since he prefers to plan ahead and execute things smoothly. Yui freezes, realizing that he has caught her red-handed in her own habits. The next day, Shizuno and Kizuki meet at their usual coffee shop for breakfast. As they talk, Shizuno pulls a CD from her bag and slides it across the table to Kizuki, who eagerly takes it, promising to give the band a listen later. She watches him with mild amusement, noting how despite being younger than her, Kizuki seems to have similar taste in music. As they chat about the band, a familiar wave of comfort washes over her. The easy flow of conversation makes her happy to share her morning with the younger boy, relating with him the most. Shizuno forces herself to push aside her thoughts as soon as she realizes she's enjoying Kizuki's company a little too much. Abruptly, she stands to leave, but Kizuki mirrors her movement, mentioning that he also needs to head to work. Mindful of workplace rumors, Shizuno suggests that Kizuki leave ahead of her, explaining that she can afford to spend a few extra minutes working in the cafe before clocking in. He nods in understanding and exits, leaving her alone with her thoughts. As she watches him go, a sense of unease creeps in. She begins to worry about how she's been acting toward him, how she's grown too comfortable, too familiar. The fact that he's 8 years younger than her only adds to her hesitation. Their daily morning cafe run-ins have become routine, and she can't deny that she enjoys his company. When she catches herself thinking about his smile, she quickly crushes the thought, reminding herself of the professional gap between them. Later that evening, after finishing her work, Shizuno steps out into the city streets and is met with the sight of couples strolling hand in hand under the glow of Christmas lights. The festive atmosphere brings her thoughts back to Kizuki, and she wonders if he has plans for Christmas. But before she can dwell on it, she shakes her head, scolding herself for entertaining such thoughts. She reminds herself of the possible consequences. If she were to pursue a relationship with Kizuki, workplace rumors would spread. Their dynamic would change, and not necessarily for the better. Then, as if to solidify her decision, a painful memory flashes through her mind, one that makes her consider cutting ties with Kizuki altogether. If she stops meeting him for breakfast, perhaps these feelings will wither before they fully bloom. Meanwhile, Masubu spends his evening in a far less emotional state, hastily heating up a microwave meal while studying. He glances at the calendar and realizes that for working adults, Christmas is just another date on the schedule. The next morning, Kizuki sits at their usual cafe table, puzzled that Shizuno hasn't shown up. At work, Shizuno is startled to hear Kizuki's voice in the accounting department. It's come to collect the event fees for the year-end party, and a ran assigned to him as part of his responsibilities. Not ready to face him, she hastily gathers the necessary documents and hands them over, keeping their interaction as brief as possible to give herself time to think. In the elevator, Masubu and Yui find themselves discussing the upcoming year-end party as their departments will be celebrating together. Masubu expresses his concerns, knowing that their relationship is still a secret and Yui tends to be uninhibited when drinking. He worries that her usual habits might expose them. Yui, however, is confident. She assures him that she has grown comfortable enough with their secret that she can handle drinking in a professional setting without slipping up. As the elevator doors open to let more people in, they instinctively step apart, maintaining a professional distance. Masubu, however, starts to worry that they might be trying too hard to appear distant. During the party, both the planning and accounting departments enjoy a lively evening filled with food, drinks, and cheerful conversations. Masubu and Shizuno find themselves seated uncomfortably close to the people they admire. Shizuno notices that Masubu isn't drinking much and has a troubled expression. She watches him for a moment, debating whether to ask if something is wrong, but before she can say anything, Masubu brushes it off. Despite his words, his mind is elsewhere. He glances over at Kizuki, realizing that they haven't spoken much since he confirmed he was in a relationship with Yui. His attention shifts to Yui, seated across the table, and he immediately notices the ring on her finger, the one he gave her for their 6-month anniversary. His hand instinctively rises to his chest. Nearby, Yukiko expresses her happiness about sitting with the same group she watched the baseball game with. She mentions how much she enjoyed the energy of that day, and Masubu, mid-drink, suddenly recalls hugging Yui during the height of the game. He had been so caught up in the excitement that he momentarily forgot they were in the presence of their coworkers. As he subtly glances at Yui, he sees her chatting with Maria, seemingly unaware of his moment of reflection. One of the staff suggests ordering another round of drinks. As the group voices their orders, Shizuno and Kizuki both request ginger ale at the same time. Realizing this, Shizuno hesitates, then hurriedly changes her order to oolong tea. Kizuki wonders why she isn't drinking like she normally does at company parties. Meanwhile, at another table, a group playfully teases Masubu and Yui, pointing out that they must be close since they joined the company at the same time. Yui, ever composed, playfully responds. Her quirky yet calm answer impresses Masubu, who discreetly taps his foot against hers in silent approval. Their quiet moment is interrupted when Chiharu suddenly calls for the table's attention. Masubu and Yui freeze, momentarily panicking that she might have caught on to their secret. Instead, Chiharu turns to Maria and asks about her social media account, the one where she reviews snacks. Chiharu explains that she's been a longtime fan of Maria's posts and really wants to befriend her so they can talk about snacks together. At the end of the party, Masubu feels relieved that he managed to stay close to Yui without raising suspicions. However, before he can fully relax, Chiharu excitedly suggests that their group should continue the night with some karaoke. Itsuro chimes in that he wants to join them. Yui subtly signals to Masubu to decline the invitation, but he doesn't catch her meaning and, to her horror, enthusiastically agrees to join. At the karaoke bar, Yui feels increasingly flustered under Masubu's intense gaze. His quiet focus makes her self-conscious, and she tries to shake off the feeling by suggesting that he sing a particularly difficult song. However, before Masubu can respond, Itsuro eagerly claims the song for himself, boasting that it is his best performance piece. Kizuki nudges Shizuno to take the microphone, encouraging her to sing. The idea of putting herself in the spotlight feels overwhelming, and she hesitates. Just as she is about to refuse, a familiar melody fills the room. Her heart skips a beat when she realizes that Kizuki has chosen a song from a band she loves. Feeling overwhelmed by her emotions, she quickly excuses herself and steps outside to clear her thoughts. Alone in the halls, she tries to convince herself that Kizuki's actions are meaningless and that he has no deeper intentions. Before she can fully collect herself, he appears beside her, concerned over her odd behavior throughout the day. His worry only makes it harder for her to suppress the emotions she has been battling. When he suggests they leave early, she feels even more flustered. Determined to shake off her emotions, she returns inside and hastily downs a large glass of beer, hoping the alcohol will dull her thoughts. Meanwhile, Chiharu playfully presents Maria with a selection of cute outfits, urging her to wear one while performing. Maria's visible discomfort makes Yui step in to gently scold their friends for being too pushy. To everyone's surprise, Maria chooses an outfit that looks like a school uniform and performs with confidence and grace, easily discarding her nervousness from earlier in the evening. The group falls silent, never expecting her to sing. Her voice is unexpectedly captivating, carrying a depth that none of them anticipate. Feeling emboldened by the atmosphere, Yui slides closer to Masubu and suggests to do it. Almost immediately, she regrets the suggestion and tries to take it back. Masubu, however, is already scrolling through the karaoke tablet, convincing himself that in this setting, it is okay to enjoy a song with Yui without raising suspicion about their relationship. With their friends too intoxicated to care, they perform together, their voices blending into the lively energy of the night. As Christmas Eve arrives, the office remains as busy as ever, treating the holiday like any other workday. Shizuno suggests they take a short break, and Maria tells him that there are free snacks in the break room. Masugu wanders into the cafeteria to get some cake from the company and is surprised to find Yui. He attempts to greet her, but she dismisses him with a cold response. Shocked at her snap greeting, he heads to the fridge, shocked to see a huge assortment of sweets for everyone to enjoy. He grabs a slice of cake from the fridge, turns on the television, and sits beside Yui. As the screen flickers, Yui notices an eye-catching wrapping and absent-mindedly takes notes inspired by the content. Masubu observes her with quiet admiration, realizing that while his Christmas lacks the romantic flair he had originally hoped, simply being with his girlfriend is enough to keep him happy. His attention drifts to a bag of snacks beside her, immediately recognizing them as products from her first project. She admits that the snacks have been pulled from shelves due to poor sales, and that she has collected what remained before they were discarded, not wanting something she had worked hard on to go to waste. Masugu reassures her that the snack is worth something to be proud of since it was her first pitch. Something in his words makes Yui pause. For the first time, she admits that she has never truly enjoyed Christmas. Instead, since working in the company, she spends the season buried in thoughts of work, constantly wondering which products fill their office fridge. She quietly admits that she feels down that her snacks have yet to make it. This year, however, feels slightly different. There is a quiet comfort in having someone by her side cheering her on during difficult times. Masugu understands the implications, and a short and tender moment is shared by gazing into each other. Her phone buzzes, breaking the moment. The message on her screen brings an unexpected rush of excitement since she gets news that her proposal has been approved. To mark the occasion, he offers to buy her coffee, and for the first time, the holiday feels like something worth celebrating. Elsewhere in the office, Shizuno unexpectedly crosses paths with Kizuki. His expression carries curiosity as he questions her absence from their usual cafe visits. She fumbles for an excuse, citing her busy schedule and hinting that she might not return to the cafe at all. Kizuki mentions that he has been hoping to see her so he can return a CD she lent him. The underlying implication of his words makes her uneasy. He shows no concern over potential rumors, seeing no harm in their shared routine since they both enjoy the same cafe and should be allowed to continue enjoying things. As he turns to leave, he promises to return the CD whenever they meet again at the cafe. Something about his words lingers, making it increasingly difficult for Shizuno to keep suppressing her feelings. A sudden decision settles in her mind. Calling out to him before he can walk away, she suggests they exchange numbers, offering to contact him when she is ready to resume their morning breakfast so he can return the CD without having to bring it every day. Slowly walking up to her, they exchange numbers as Shizuno quietly admits to herself that she had fallen for Kizuki, no longer caring about their positions in work.